Hello friends, welcome again to the class on international business. So, this is something like which always interests us and even challenges us what is the exchange rate and how exchange rate is determined. So, in the last few lectures we have been discussing about them, right. What is exchange rate, what factors affect the exchange rate and why exchange rate is so important for international business. And today in the last lecture also we discussed about the theories of exchange rate, right. So, when we talked about the theories of exchange rate, so the first theory we talked about was the purchasing power parity, right. So, in this theory we talked about two conditions, one is the absolute PPP which is very less dynamic, right, in comparison to the other one which is the relative PPP, right, and we tried to understand, right. So, continuing that then we will have these two, right, but let us continue with the purchasing power parity. What is the use or advantage of the PPP? So, since you have understood this, let us see. So, what it does is it develops the PPP develops reasonably very accurate economic statistics, right, to compare the market conditions of different countries. First, this is the basic advantage. For example, the PPP is often used to equalize calculations of GDP, right, because purchasing power can vary from country to country. I will show you an example now. The statistics for GDP based on purchasing power parity is often different than the nominal GDP, right. So, GDP as described, which is nominal as described by the currency exchange alone, right. And second advantage is that it compares the quality or standard of living in different countries, which may not be possible if one just looks at the per capita income. A lower income may allow a good quality of life in a country where prices are low. So, that it will not have a much of an impact, rather the understanding will be very different. So, let us look at one case now. How does India and Japan stand when it comes to PPP, right. So, let us read this. Under the regular method of GDP calculation, India's economy is well behind Japan. So, the countries are United States, China, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom and India. So, this is sources April 2018. You will see in terms of nominal GDP, United States is 19.39 trillion, China 12.01, Japan 4.87, Germany 3.68, United Kingdom 2.62 and India is just at the sixth point 2.61 trillion, right. But does it remain the same when we look at the purchasing power parity? We will see that, right. So, however, price levels in Japan are much higher than that of India or in the US. So, if you buy something in India, the same product, you may have to pay much higher in comparison to India. So, when the IMF adjusts the national income of the two countries in terms of PPP exchange rate using US dollar, Indian economy was at 9.45 trillion, this one, right, this condition in 2018 because of the lower prices, while Japan stayed at 5.42 trillion. Now, if you look at this now ratio, India stands at what position? 1, 2 and 3. So, the top country becomes China, followed by United States and then India, right. Essentially, it means that in total two countries have the same purchasing power, but because of its much lower population average, Japanese is way ahead of average Indian in purchasing power, right. So, basically what it helps you is to give a very realistic picture of what is happening. So, in this case India easily overtakes the Japan in terms of PPP, but it has its own limitations also. PPP has limitations. What is it? So, the first limitation is this theory assumes that changes in price levels will bring in changes in the exchange rate. What? Change in price level will bring in changes in the exchange rate, but not vice versa. That means, change in exchange rate brings in what kind of effect on price, that is not known, right. So, that is changes in exchange rate cannot affect domestic price levels of the countries concerned. So, this is an assumption which might not be true, right. Similarly, according to the theory, to calculate the new equilibrium rate, one must know the base rate. So, we are comparing as per the base rate. So, that is the old equilibrium rate, but as you have understood by now. So, it depends on so many factors, how do you decide that base rate, right. But it is difficult to ascertain the particular rate which actually prevailed between the currencies as the equilibrium rate. So, that rate to actually find out, because it is so dynamic, it is every minute, every second it is changing. So, to exactly ascertain, to find, it is a very complex task. So, some assumptions have to be made, right. Third, it assumes away transportation costs and barriers to trade. Now, that is only a very hypothetical situation. In practice, these factors are significant and they tend to create significant price differential between countries, right. So, what kind of trade barriers are there, what kind of transportation cost, they will entirely change the price, right, which again will have an effect on the exchange rates. Finally, the governments regularly intervene in the foreign exchange market, right, and this further weakens the link between price changes and changes in exchange rate. Now, that is we know that the government tries to intervene to make the trade in its favor. So, this conditions will always create a disruption, right, and it further weakens the link between price and changes in exchange rate. So, these are some of the limitations of the PPP theory, right. Now, we will look at some important terms before moving further, right. So, one is the spot market and the forward market. Spot market you just have understood now, before we were talking about spot, right, something on the spot. In the spot market, the delivery of the foreign exchange has to be made, right, on the spot, usually within 2 days of the transaction. So, that means any transaction is being made, the delivery has to be made immediately. The exchange rate at which the transaction takes place is called the spot rate. So, whatever the exchange rate with at that point of time is called the spot rate. The spot exchange rate is determined by immediate market demand and supply of the foreign exchange. So, what is the at the moment? So, it is so dynamic. So, what is the current moment at which I am let us say exchanging? So, I am going to let us say buy some dollars because I am going abroad. So, when I am going abroad and I am buying, what is the current value at that point time of time is called the spot exchange rate. But during business, while doing business, many a times we need some extra time period, right. So, for that comes the forward market. Now, what is the forward market? It says the foreign exchange is bought and sold for delivery at a future date at an agreed rate today. That means, we have agreed for a rate today which we will pay later on. This is called as a forward contract. The rate at which the forward exchange contract is agreed is called the forward rate, right. Now, why it is done? You must have heard the word hedging. Sometimes it is important that we cannot exactly find out what will happen to the values. So, it may go up, it may go down. So, in order to avoid a loss in such situations, it might be a profit also, but if it is a loss, it is more dangerous for us, right. So, we will go for a more safer side. So, to do that, we use this forward rates. It is used to ensure against unfavorable changes in the exchange rate. If it is a favorable exchange rate, everybody will be happy, but what if it is an unfavorable, the entire business may go bankrupt. So, to ensure this is done, the usual forward exchange rate is signed for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, which is most common, right. Let us look at this. I could enter into an agreement today to purchase 100 euros 3 months from today. So, I have made a contract, I have made a agreement that I will purchase 100 euros at a price this, that 1 euro is 1.01 dollars, right. I have agreed to buy at this price. Note that no currencies are paid out at the time. So, today I am not paying, today as this date I am not paying any amount. The contract is signed except for 10% may be security margin. Okay. After 3 months I get 100 euros for $101. So, this is it, regardless of what the spot rate is at that particular time. Maybe the spot rate is actually come down to 0.99 or it has gone up to 1 euro is dollar is now 0.99 or it is 1.02 whatever. So, I am not concerned now. Okay. So, this is we will use now these words, that is why we did it. So, now coming to the new second theory, right. The second theory in exchange rates is called the interest rate parity theory. Now, what is this interest rate parity? It is very interesting. So, this theory says that the interest rate differential between two countries is equal to the differential between the forward exchange rate and the spot exchange rate. Let us go back and understand what it says. IRP is a theory in which the interest rate differential means the difference between two countries A and B, right, is equal, the interest rate difference is equal to the difference between the forward exchange rate, and the spot rate. This is what it says, right. Forward exchange rates for currencies are exchange rates at a future point in time, as opposed to the spot exchange rate which are current. We have already learnt it. It plays a very crucial role in the forex markets, right, because of its favorable and unfavorable situations or the extreme change dynamism, right. The interest rate parity presents an idea that there is no arbitrage in the foreign exchange markets, right. It presents an idea that there is no arbitrage, right. So, the formula for the interest rate parity is something like this. So, what it says, forward rate divided by spot rate is equal to interest rate in country A, right, by interest rate in country B, right. So, this is you have to remember. Now, let us see this. Suppose the borrowed amount is $1 lakh, okay. Interest rate prevailing in India is how much? Let us say 12%. Interest rate prevailing in US is 7%. Okay. So, when you see this difference, what comes to your mind, like anybody who does business, you will think there is a difference. So, why not take advantage of it? So, anyone would try to take advantage of the situation. So, by borrowing in US at 7% per annum, I take extra loan, right, at 7% per annum, and I would invest in India at 12% per annum, simple, right, thereby earning the net differential interest of 5%. This is very much theoretically possible, but actually this is not so simple. It does not happen that way. Now, why it does not happen? Theoretically we are saying it is happening. So, let us see why it is not happening. In fact, as per the interest rate parity theory, this is not possible, right. Why? The exchange rate between rupees and dollar would have changed adversely in such a way that the interest rate differential so earned shall be compensated by the exchange loss arising on repayment of the US loan. This is US loan, right. So, he had taken loan from US market, right, at 7%. So, let us extend the above example. Assume the spot rate is 64 rupees is equal to $1, right. So, somebody now would take a loan at 7% from US. So, hypothetical now. So, the resulting gain is he takes a loan of 1 lakh, which is 64 rupees in India, and he gets a 5% advantage. So, how much is the advantage? 3,20,000 rupees, right. This is rupees 3,20,000. Now, let us determine the 1 year forward rate. So, what is it? Now, FO is equal to, look at this from here only. So, FO is equal to SO into 1 plus interest rate plus interest rate in the B country. So, how much it is becoming? So, 64 into 1 plus in India, interest rate in India is how much? 0.12 and this is 0.707. So, this value actually now becomes how much? Now, this becomes, so the forward rate is now 66.9907. Now, what is happening, because let us take this total in totality. So, the amount borrowed is this much, interest paid is $7,000, right, $7,000, obviously 7% in the US market. So, total amount payable is this much, okay, at the end of the year. Amount payable as per spot rate prevailing at the beginning is how much? He would have paid 1,07,000 into 64, right. So, in Indian rupees it is this much. Okay. Total amount payable at the end year end is how much? Now, it has changed. So, 1,07,000 into this much. So, 7,168,000. Now, the excess payable due to this difference, right, this difference is equal to 3,20,000. So, now that means what has happened? Whatever the benefit you would have got has been all lost or compensated by this increase in value, right. So, as per interest rate parity, the resulting exchange loss has completely offset the gain made through interest rate differential. So, this is what it says. Okay. Now, what is the implication? If this difference is positive, forward rate minus spot rate. So, FO minus SO, right, it is known as a forward premium. A negative difference is termed as forward discount, right. If IRP theory holds, then arbitrage is not possible. It is not possible, no matter whether an investor invests in domestic country or foreign country, arbitrage is not possible, and you know arbitrage, the difference basically. The rate of return will be the same as if an investor invested in the home country when measured in domestic currency, it says. If domestic interest rates are less, that means the Indian for example, then foreign interest rates, foreign currency must trade at a forward discount to offset any benefit of higher interest rates in foreign currency to prevent arbitrage. So, what is happening? If foreign currency does not trade at a forward discount, which it is, right, or if the forward discount is not large enough to offset the interest rate advantage, arbitrage opportunity would exist, okay, for domestic investors. So, domestic investors can benefit by investing in the foreign market in that condition. So, if the forward rate is above the present spot rate, foreign currency is said to be forward premium, we have said this. So, this is the same, you know. So, these conditions are so volatile and so dynamic that sometimes they compensate for each other, right, and at the end the gain is to be very it has to be to calculate this gain is very difficult also, right. If domestic interest rates are more, so what happened here? Domestic interest rates were less, so there was a arbitrage opportunity. If domestic interest rates are more than the foreign, that means in India it is more than US, foreign currency must trade at a forward premium, right, to offset any benefit of higher interest rates in the domestic country to prevent arbitrage. If foreign currency does not trade at a forward premium, or if the forward premium is not large enough to offset the interest rate advantage of the domestic country, arbitrage opportunity exists for the foreign investors. So, what happens? The foreign investors now can benefit by domestic in the investing market, in the domestic market. So, could you understand? So, depending on the how much is the difference and what is the interest rate, if this is close, then it is in a state of equilibrium. If one is more than the other, then there is an opportunity for arbitrage that exists, and the price differential would be taken up by the domestic or the foreign investor. Okay. What is the limitation? In many countries with higher interest rates, right, often experience it is currency appreciation or appreciate, the currency appreciate due to higher demands and higher yields and has nothing to do with riskless arbitrage, right. So, because of the higher interest rate, that the currency demand is going, so the appreciation is happening, right. So, because of the higher demand and higher yield and not due to the arbitrage which is generally thought of, right. The third exchange rate study is through the Fisher effect. So, this is an economic theory created by Irving Fisher that describes the relationship between inflation and both real and nominal interest rate. This is also interesting, very interesting. So, according to the Fisher effect, what is it saying? The real interest rate is equal to the nominal interest rate minus the expected rate of inflation. So, what is saying? R is equal to nominal interest rate or I, right. So, I minus the pi is inflation, basically is shown as inflation. Real interest rate adjusts the observed market interest rate for the effects of inflation and takes purchasing power into account. So, what is it doing? The real interest rate adjusts for the inflation effect and takes the purchasing power into account. The nominal interest rate does not do that. It refers to the interest rate before taking inflation into account. So, it does not take the inflation. So, what is the Fisher equation saying? So, real interest rate is equal to nominal interest rate minus inflation rate, R is equal to I minus pi. So, he gave his theorem which says that 1 plus nominal rate is equal to 1 plus real rate into 1 plus inflation rate. This is the Fisher theorem. So, 1 plus I is equal to 1 plus R into 1 plus pi, right. So, the result in practice is that as inflation rates go up, so this is inflation, real interest rate go down, right. So, in order to, when nominal rates do not increase at rates equal to those of inflation, in order to keep this constant. So, if this increases, so this has to come down, obvious, right. This effect is always, not always immediately visible, but over time it is a consistent economic pattern. So, this is very important, we will see in an example in the next slide. So, what it is saying, that the nominal interest rate is equal to the real, is affected by the real and the inflation, real interest rate, right. So, the real interest rate, obviously there is an equation, so they affect each other. Suppose, let us say this example, suppose you own a firm having the real rate of return to 3.5%, right, and expected inflation to 5.4. So, what is it saying? The real rate of return is 3.5 and the expected inflation is 5.4. So, according to the above formula, what happens? The approximate nominal rate of return can be calculated as how much? Now, 0.035 plus 0.054, by normally if you go by it, then it should be 0.089. So, the real rate of return plus the inflation, right. So, is equal to 8.9. Substituting the value of I and R in the formula, in this formula, now you will see that what is happening. So, 1 plus R, so 1 plus R into 1 plus I pi. Now, that makes, if you multiply these two, so that would actually give you the nominal interest rate as 9.1 and not 8.9, right. So, what it is saying basically, the Fisher equation is saying that therefore, the approximate relationship between the real interest rate and the nominal interest rate can be shown as follows. What is it? Now, I, the nominal interest rate, is approximately equal to R plus the pi, R plus pi, here pi, right. So, R plus pi, so real plus pi. So, now what are the implications, right. So, when the nominal interest rate tend to run parallel to inflation, when the nominal interest rate runs parallel to the inflation rates, so that monetary policy is effectively neutralized due to the Fisher effect. Read it and think about it. More specifically, when the money supply is increased by a central bank, let us say the RBI, if the RBI is increasing the money supply and expected inflation rises, so the inflation would tend to rise, that central bank also increases the interest rates. So, when money supply is increased, the central bank, by central bank expected inflation rises, that central bank also will increase the interest rates. Now, when nominal interest rates increases simultaneously with inflation rates, that means that there is little practical effect. So, the practical effect is negligible. The Fisher effect is an important tool by which lenders can find whether or not they are making money on a granted loan. So, are you really making money? So, the Fisher effect can help you in finding out. Moreover, according to the Fisher's theory, even if a loan is granted at no interest, let us say no interest, a lending party would need to charge at least the inflation rate in order to retain the purchasing power upon repayment, right. So, this is what the Fisher theory talks about, right. So, international Fisher effect, now there is another view to that. What is it saying? The Fisher effect shows that for a given real rate, the higher the expected inflation rate, the higher the nominal rate. Now, international Fisher effect extends this concept to the nominal rates in two countries. Now, what is it saying? Countries with higher nominal rate have higher inflation rates due to the Fisher effect, right. Now, using relative purchasing power parity, where the change in the exchange rate should be related to the differences in inflation rates of two countries. Now, what is saying? Using relative purchasing power parity, where the change in the exchange rate should be related to the differences in inflation rates of two countries. Here, International Fisher effect says that the change in the exchange rate should be related to differences in the nominal rates of the two countries. So, this is what the IFE says, right. Now, equation looks something like this. So, this is how the equation looks like this. So, expected change in the exchange rate, right, is equal to 1 plus nominal rate in the home country by nominal rate 1 plus nominal rate in the foreign country and minus 1, and this is approximately equal to the same, right. Again, suppose the nominal rate interest rate on a 1-year insurance US bank deposit is 9%, take this example, and the rate on 1-year insured British bank deposit is 10. So, this is 9, this is 10. What does IFE predict will happen to the exchange rate, right. So, if you look at it, so this is the, let us go back to the formula. So, IH home and foreign, right. So, when you do this is the final value which is coming. So, what is saying the solution? The British pound to depreciate by little less than 1%. Implications of the International Fisher effect, it suggests that currencies with higher interest rates will have high expected inflation due to the Fisher effect, and relatively the high inflation will cause the currencies to depreciate due to the purchasing power parity effect, right. So, this is all we have for today. So, these are the 3 different methods through which you can find the exchange rate, and you can, if you start solving little more problems and work on this, you will finally get a connect between how these different parameters are connected to each other, and then only one can be a good advisor to somebody to maybe suggest what should be the future agenda, future strategy or policy for a company or for a nation or for even an individual, how it should look at the benefits that it can make by understanding these different scenarios, right. So, this is all we have for the day. Thank you very much. We will meet in the next lecture, right. Thank you.